Hi, Pat Lentine here. Today I'll be talking about layering using a sharp or dull pencil point, stroke direction, and pencil pressure. The surfaces that we use usually have some texture to them. And the reason we use a textured surface is because it will accept more layers of color than a smooth surface. And layers of color is what creates depth in our painting. The more layers of color that we use, the more that the light will pass through, and this is what helps create the depth. And this is true in any medium, in oil or acrylic or any medium. The more layers, the more depth. A sharp pencil point will go down into the grooves of the surface and give a smooth coverage. And you'll also be able to apply more layers with a sharp point. And here's an example of some pencil points. This is what I consider a sharp point. This is not quite a sharp point, and this is a dull point. So we have the sharp point, and this will go down into the grooves of the paper and create a smoother application than a less sharp point or a almost sharp point. So here's an example of a sharp point, and you'll notice I keep turning the pencil, rotating the pencil in my hand to keep I can feel the pencil getting dull or the tip getting flat. And I keep rotating it to find a sharp edge. And when I can't rotate it anymore to find any more sharp edge, that's when I'll sharpen it. Now this is a pencil point that is not quite sharp enough for my purposes. And if I use this pencil point, it doesn't quite get into the grooves of the paper. Now I don't know if you can see that, but I think it'll show up a little bit more as we go along. The coverage is not as smooth. And a dull pencil point will skip right across the grooves of the paper, and it doesn't get in and give you a smooth application. And with layering on top, let me use let me see if I can get a dull point here with the same color. I think it'll give you a better idea. I'm going to get a really dull point on here. Okay, so a duller pencil point skips across the grooves of the paper even more. So you have a sharp point that gets down into the grooves, a semi-sharp point, and a dull point that skips across. And as you add more layers, and I have a sharp point here, if I add another layer with the sharp point, I'm going to get a smooth, even coverage. And if I add another layer with a dull point, the coverage, you should be able to see the coverage is not smooth. And the more layers that you add, the more colors that you add, here's another sharp point. See, I'm starting to fill in the grooves, and here is a dull point, and it's less and less smooth as you as you add more layers. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can see that. So you can see the sharper the point, the smoother the coverage. So I like to use a sharp point. Also, the stroke direction can make a difference. I use a circle stroke, which fills in all the grooves of the paper. It goes in all directions, in other words, so it will fill in the grooves in different directions. If you use a linear stroke, you're only filling in the grooves from one direction, so it's not quite as smooth. If you add more and more layers With the circle stroke, you'll get a smooth application. If you add more and more layers with the linear stroke, you'll still get, it'll look more like a drawing, and this will look more like a painting. Now, if you want to use the linear stroke and have a smooth application, if you do the linear stroke first in one direction, then a second direction, and maybe a third and fourth direction, then you get rid of your strokes and it looks more like a painting. So a circle stroke is a smooth application. A linear stroke, unless you go in all directions, is not quite as smooth. Pencil pressure also is a factor, and the lighter the pressure, the more layers you can apply, and the more light reflection, so it gives a more painterly look. And heavy pressure, light pressure such as this, you can add more layers. Heavy pressure such as this, you cannot add more layers, and therefore it'll look more like just color book painting because you can't add the layers. If you add more layers onto this, you don't get as much depth as if you would add layers onto this. Okay, I hope this has been helpful, and if you'd like to see more of what I have created, go to www.patlantine.com, and thank you for watching.